Okay, welcome everyone we have four agendas today. At all four of them are decision-making only agendas for the Judiciary Committee this morning, Thursday, March 5. We'll go ahead and start with the first one, which is our 10 o'clock agenda. This is Senate Bill 2151. Oops. This clarifies state and local authority during a state or local state of emergency. Defines severe weather warnings, amends the definitions of disaster and emergency to limit the use of emergency powers except to address sudden events that cause or are likely to cause catastrophic harm or immediate danger, allows the legislature to terminate a state of emergency and city councils to terminate a local state of emergency. Having discussed this with the prior chair, my recommendation will be, and she's agreed to it, to go back to the definition that was in the as introduced bill, which just left the real crux of it is that the changes made at PSM made it so that
Can you please speak up? You kind of very
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The big change is that the SD1 had a narrower definition of what an emergency is. So we're going back to the definition that we've been using for years, which is a broader one. There's some argument about what it should be, but we will also put a bad date on it on March 22, 2075 to continue that discussion. Members, questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 2151, the recommendations to pass with amendments. Chair Rhodes.
Aye.
Vice Chair votes with reservations. Senator Chang. Senator San Buenaventura.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
No.
The measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you. That is our 10 o'clock agenda. Next up is our 10:01 agenda. And it is 10:01. I don't know what you're here for, so I don't know if you're done or not. And I'm sorry, I tried to explain before, but I actually have a hearing I'm supposed to run here, okay? You do have say on it. You've had say on it through the entire process. You can.
You did it. Last time you didn't let us speak either. And we have things to do too.
Okay, then I would suggest that you go ahead and do them because we're moving on to the 10:01 agenda now. Thank you. First up on SB. First up on the 10:01 agenda is SB 3055. This prohibits a person from falsely impersonating an employee organization representative, establishes a cause of action and penalties for violation.
That's wrong.
Okay, the recommendation here is to pass with amendments since you can already get damages, punitive damages, and injunctive relief. Let's remove. I'm going to go ahead and remove liquidated damages. Any questions or concerns? If not, Senator Gabbard.
It's with amendments.
With amendments.
Recommendation on SB 3055 is to pass with amendments. With all members present, are there any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3067. This removes outdated requirements and formats for plans filed with the registrar's office, updates permissible withdrawing scales used in plans. Recommendation here is to pass with technical amendments only. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3067, the recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3077. This adopts the Uniform Healthcare Decisions Act as modified to replace existing chapters related to advanced healthcare directives and advanced mental health care directives. The recommendation here, it already has a bad date, and so just technical amendments only. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3077, the recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations?
No.
No vote for Senator Awa. The measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Next up is SB 3083, requires notification of the security forces of each branch of the military when a protective order is issued in a case involving a military affiliated individual. With the prior concurrence of the two previous chairs, we'd like to adopt the judiciary organizational macro amendments to narrow notice to just a designated military security force, because the person would only be from one branch. And is that it? Yep. And that's it. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3083, recommendations to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3118 relating to the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children. Our recommendation here is to pass as is. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3118, recommendations to pass as is. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3131. This updates state position titles by changing private secretary to executive assistant and secretary to administrative assistant where applicable. The recommendation here is to pass with technical amendments only. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3131, the recommendation to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure passes.
Chair.
I'm sorry, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards, but we're in the middle of a hearing, so we're going to go on with the hearing. SB 3134, relating to emergency medical systems of care. Sorry, modernizes the state's emergency medical services statutes to align with current best practices. This is SB 3134. Recommendation here is to pass with technical amendments only. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3134, recommendations to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure passes.
Okay, thank you. Next up is SB 3134. This establishes the offenses of dangerous intoxication and habitual dangerous intoxication, provides for civil protective custody and transport for emergency examination under section 334-45. The recommendation here is to pass with technical amendments only. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
On SB 3142, recommendations to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure passes.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3144. This repeals the Hoisting Machine Operators Advisory Board. Recommendation here is to pass unamended. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3144, recommendations to pass unamended. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure passes.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3152. This renames the Harbors Division of the Department of Transportation to the Commercial Ports Division and distinguishes between the terms harbor and commercial ports throughout the statutes. Recommendation here is to pass with text only. Questions or concerns? If not, Senator Gabbard.
On SB 3152, recommendations to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure passes.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3154. This authorizes the Department of Transportation to assume responsibilities under the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 for highway projects. Recommendation here is to pass with text only. Any questions or concerns? If not, Senator Gabbard.
SB 3154, recommendation to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure passes.
Okay, next up is SB 3249. This requires the forfeiture of half of the cash or protest bond for review of procurement-related disputes. Recommendation is to pass as is. It already has a bad date. There are still some issues to be worked out there, but we're not going to try to do it today. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3249, recommendations to pass unamended. Any no votes or reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Senator San Buenaventura. The measure is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3251. This prohibits the Department of Law Enforcement, Department of Land and Natural Resources, Department of Taxation, and Department of the Attorney General from appointing or employing former United States Immigration and Customs Service or Border Patrol agents. The recommendation here is to pass with amendments. With prior concurrence from earlier chairs, we're going to change it to anyone who's worked for ICE or Border Patrol for more than 90 days cumulatively between January 1, 2025 and December 31, 2028 is not eligible to work in the law enforcement agencies listed in this bill. And it does have a bad date. Questions or concerns? If not, Senator Gabbard.
SB 3251. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations?
Reservations.
No vote for Senator Owa. Reservations for Senator San Buenaventura. The measure is adopted.
Okay, next up is SB 3262. This requires that the Hawaii State Teachers Board submit 3 nominees for its executive board to the Board of Education. Recommendation is to pass it with an amendment to make it amend it to have an defective date. So March 22, 2075. That's the only amendment. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 3262, recommendation is passed with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
Okay, next up is SB 3315. This allows applicants or primary caregivers to make a one-time purchase of medical cannabis after the submission of the applicant certification form while waiting for confirmation and registration from the Department of Health. Recommendation here is to amend it and just put on a bad date, March 22, 2075. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
SB 3315, recommendations to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SB 3322 relating to law enforcement. This prohibits with certain exceptions the use of facial coverings and requires visible identification by law enforcement officers and their vehicles in the performance of their duties. Requires state and county law enforcement agencies to establish policies regarding state and county cooperation with federal civil immigration enforcement. Okay. Recommendation here with prior concurrence is to pass with amendments. Would like to drop the affirmative defense provision. We'll make the mask penalty a misdemeanor, tracking the language of Senate Bill 2203, which this committee passed out a few weeks ago. Basically, it would say that somebody in a group someone in a law enforcement group always has to be unmasked. You can have masked officers, but somebody has to be unmasked within sight of all the other officers. And we'll accept the amendments that would worked out with HPD and the Department of Law Enforcement having to do with undercover work and preparation for undercover work and some other provisions, but we'll be tracking the language of SB 2203. Then we'll replace the interrogation definition to question a person in a manner with to question a person who is stopped, detained, or arrested in a manner. And we'll lower the Class C penalty in the bill to a misdemeanor. And it will, I don't know if it has a bad date or not. I'm going to put a bad date on it too, March 22, 2075. Questions or concerns? If not, Senator Gabbard.
SB 3322, recommendations to pass with amendments. Any no votes or reservations?
No.
No vote for Senator Owa. The measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. We'll move on to our, what was the 1001 agenda? 2 agenda. First up on the first and only on the 1002 agenda. Is this the reconsideration one? 1005, okay. First up is 2471. Sorry, first and only 2471 relating to powers of artificial persons. This reaffirms that we heard this bill earlier and had delayed decision making on it at the time. Reaffirms that artificial persons. I'm sorry, no, we did not hear this bill earlier. We delayed decision making on an earlier decision making agenda. Reaffirms that artificial persons created under state law, such as corporations, LLCs, possess only those powers that are necessary or convenient to carry out lawful business and charitable or organizational purposes. Recommendation here is to pass with some amendments. We do have a prior concurrence on this one as well. We'll reinsert language that applies the prohibitions to foreign corporations doing business in Hawaii. A foreign corporation means any entity not organized under state law, so not necessarily out of state. I'm not out of the country, but just out of state. the state can and does regulate these foreign entities. If the state did not extend the prohibitions to foreign corporations, they would have an advantage over Hawaii-based corporations on election matters. Specifically, a paragraph will be inserted in 5 parts of the bill that states the following: a foreign corporation is authorized to transact business, is otherwise transacting business, or holds property in the state is subject to this section. A foreign corporation that directly or indirectly undertakes, finances, or directs election activity or ballot issue activity in the state shall be conclusively deemed to be transacting business in the state. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, Senator Gabbard.
On SB 2471, the recommendation is to pass with amendments. Are there any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our last agenda, which is the 1005 agenda. This has SB 2057. This prohibit. Oops, that's the wrong. This is the yes. 2057. This prohibits law enforcement officers from using any personnel or funds originating in the state to assist or facilitate conduct by federal immigration agents that exceed their law enforcement duties or authority. Prohibits law enforcement officers from assisting or cooperating with or allowing resources to be used to facilitate federal immigration agents engaged in operations that target individuals or entities for activities protected by the First Amendment of the United States. Or, but it does require state law enforcement agencies to cooperate where federal law requires it. Okay, so this is a reconsideration of the first time we'll be reconsidering our vote earlier. The reason I'm reconsidering it was that about 20 minutes after we took our vote, I got prior concurrence from all the chairs for the amendments that I'd hoped to pass. So we will vote again on this one, but with this set of amendments. We'll define the following terms by reference or new definition: law enforcement officer, federal immigration agents at or near, assist, facilitate, exceeds their law enforcement duty or authority. Will address constitutional concerns by scrubbing language that might be interpreted as obstructing federal activity. Emphasis will be on doing local law enforcement jobs while assisting federal agencies where required by federal law. We will enumerate First Amendment activity. Local and state law enforcement are tasked with protecting, i.e. nonviolent protests, recording of law enforcement activity unless physically interfering with authorized law enforcement activity, speaking law enforcement officers, even if it is in impolite terms. And I'll also note, this is not part of the amendments, but probably we'll put it in the committee report, that Honolulu anyway is down several hundred officers, and they're hardly able to keep up with their main task of enforcing state and local crimes. So I think it's unrealistic to expect our local law enforcement officers to help very much with immigration matters. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
On SB 2057, the recommendation is to pass with amendments. Are there any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measure is adopted.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.